Good morning, Year 4. Happy Friday. We've made it a whole other week. I must say this has been probably my favourite week because I've been loving seeing everything you've sent to me, seeing all your pictures of your work, seeing everything that you've written and taking a photo of it, and I'm really liking being able to mark that again and to see that. But yeah, we've made it to a whole other week. I hope you've enjoyed the week, and I hope you enjoyed the story that I'm going to read for you today. This story is actually one of my favourites, and my nan used to read this to me. And over the Easter holidays, probably as your parents were doing, you were sorting out lots of your things, and I came across this book. Now, it doesn't look like much, and it's quite old, but it's a story that my nan let me have, and I might even share this video with her. But it's I'll Tell You a Story by Enid Blyton, and on the inside cover there's actually a message. Don't know if you can see that there, just up at the top here, to my nan from her aunt, and it was given to her for a Christmas present in 1942. That shows you quite how old this book is, but even so it's still one of my favourites, but it might explain some of the old money terms that you'll listen to in the story. Anyway, this is a collection of stories, so there's lots of different stories on the inside cover there, and I'm actually just going to read you one, then that's called What Happens to a Smile. I hope you enjoy it. What happened to a smile? Benny was a thin little boy, and he had never had an overcoat in his life. He had only once had a penny to spend, and he had never forgotten that day. He was quite happy though, and what his mother would do without him she would never know. "You know, Mother," said Benny, "I really don't mind being poor, except for one thing, and that is I can never give anybody anything. I can't give Lucy next door a Christmas present at Christmas time, and I can't give Tom a birthday present. I can't even give the old blind man at the corner a halfpenny, and I wish I could." "Why, Benny?" said his mother in surprise. "What does it matter if you can't give them presents or money? You can give them other things, can't you?" "What things?" asked Benny. "Well, you can give them a bright smile, for instance," said his mother. "You can give them a hand with their parcels. You can give them a polite good morning to the people in the road. Look at that poor ugly Mr. Grimm who lives in the next street. Nobody ever smiles at him, and I'm sure he must be sad and lonely without a friend in the world." Then he thought about what his mother had said. Yes, it was quite true. Although he hadn't any money to buy things for other people, he could give smiles and kindness. He made up his mind and began that very day. He went out shopping for his mother that morning. He took her net with him because she wanted some potatoes. As he went, he kept a lookout for old Mr. Grimm. Benny was really a bit frightened of him because he had such thick, horrible eyebrows, and he frowned so crossly. Sure enough, down the street came Mr. Grimm, frowning hard as usual. And just as he reached Benny, the little boy raised his cap and said, "Good morning," most politely, and smiled. Benny had a fine smile. It made you feel happy and good when he smiled at you. Mr. Grimm was so surprised that he forgot to smile back. He just stared at Benny as if he couldn't believe his eyes. The little boy went on his way, glad that he had smiled, but disappointed that Mr. Grimm hadn't smiled back. "That was a waste of a smile," said Benny to himself. But it wasn't. A smile is never wasted, ever. Hear what happens to this one, and you'll see. Mr. Grimm went on his way. He kept thinking of Benny's smile, and it warmed his cold, lonely heart. When he got home, he went and looked at himself in the mirror. He saw a dirty, untidy, cross old man there. Dear, dear, what a dreadful sight he looked. "There must be something nice about me, or that little boy wouldn't have given me such a fine smile," Mr. Grimm said to himself. "Well, I've always thought I was an ugly, cross, sour, bad-tempered old fellow who hated children and hadn't a friend in the world. I wonder, could I possibly be mistaken?" He looked at himself again, and then a thought came into his head. I don't believe I'm as bad as all that," he said. "I believe if I was clean and tidy and had a nice new suit and my hair cut, I'd be a fine fellow. The little chap wouldn't have smiled at me if I had been as bad as everyone makes out." Well, you should have seen Mr. Grimm that day. He took off all of his things and had a hot bath, and he put on his clothes again and shook his head. "I can't tidy these up," he said. "I will go and get a new suit." So off he went. He popped into the hairdresser's first of all and had his hair cut nicely. And then he went to Mr. Hen, the tailor. And that's a picture of Mr. Grimm at the top there, looking into the mirror. "I want a fine new suit," he said. "Something cheerful and bright. And I want a new hat. Oh, and an overcoat too, please. Can you fit me all these things?" Mr. Hen was delighted. Things had been going very badly for him lately, and he hadn't enough work to do. He began to measure Mr. Grimm, and he talked to him happily. So few people ever talked to Mr. Grimm that he felt more pleased than ever. How fine it was to get a nice new suit measured by this nice friendly tailor like this. "I think I'll have 2 suits," he said suddenly. "Yes, I could really do with 2. I'll have one in blue and one in a nice warm brown. And I'll have 2 hats as well." Well, Mr. Hen couldn't believe his ears. What a lot of money he would make that week. Oh my, it was good news. He would be able to send his little nephew a fine birthday present now. This was good. Mr. Grimm left the shop at last, beaming all over his face. Mr. Hen, the tailor, sat down and set to work to cut the cloth to make the new suits. He smiled to himself. "What shall I send Jack for his birthday?" he thought. "Shall I send him a train? No, he's got one. Shall I send him a book? No, I might send him one he's got already. Dear me, what shall I send him now?" He cut out the sleeves of the coat and thought hard. "I know," he said at last. "I will send him money. Yes, I will send him 5 shillings. Or shall it be 7 shillings and 6pence? He is a good boy and I am fond of him. I shall make much money from these coats. Yes, I will send him 7 shillings and 6pence. Well, when he had done a good deal more work and stopped for his dinner, he went to pop out to the post office and he bought some paper money worth 7 shillings and 6pence. It was a postal order. Mr. Hen put it in an envelope and addressed it to Jack, his little nephew. What a lot that smile had done already. It had made Mr. Grimm buy lots of new clothes and feel much happier. It had caused the tailor to feel most delighted, and it had made him buy a postal order for 7 shillings and 6pence. Jack didn't expect such a wonderful birthday present from his uncle, the tailor. He didn't expect anything at all, because he knew that Uncle Hen was feeling rather poor. As a matter of fact, Jack had almost forgotten he was going to have a birthday, because, at the time, he was so very unhappy about something. That something was his puppy dog, Spot. You see, Spot was just over 6 months old, and he should have had a licence. Every dog owner that age has to have a licence bought for him at the post office for 7 shillings and 6pence. And poor Jack hadn't any money at all, and his father couldn't possibly pay for the licence. So he was dreadfully worried, because he loved Spot with all his heart. "Oh, Spot, if I can't buy you a licence, the policeman will come and take you away from me," he said, hugging the little dog. "All dogs must have licences, and you haven't got one. Oh, why did you grow big so quickly? I can't do without you." And there's a picture there of Jack with Spot. Spot licked his master sorrowfully. He didn't know what was the matter, but it nearly broke his heart to see Jack cry. And now you can imagine what Jack felt like on the next day when his uncle's letter arrived with a postal order for 7 shillings and 6pence. What a lot of money! Why, that was the price of the dog licence. It was! Inside the envelope with the money was a little note that said, "Dear Jack, I don't know what you want for your birthday, so here is some money. Spend it on anything you like and be happy. Your loving Uncle Hen." Jack flew round the kitchen in joy, waving the money out and shouting excitedly to his father and to Spot, who was quite glad to see that the little master was so happy again. Out they went running together to buy the licence, both of them running and jumping for all they were worth. Jack bought the licence at the post office and then went down to the river to go to his uncle's shop to thank him for such a lovely birthday present. Now, it just so happened that Benny was running by the river too. He was going shopping for his mother again, just as he had done the day before, and the path by the river was a shortcut to the shops. As he ran, his foot got caught against a piece of tree trunk, and over he went. He rolled down the riverbank into the river, splash! Uh-oh, So there's the picture of Benny with his netted bag that he carries for his potatoes, just falling into the river. In he went, and the water closed right over his head. He came to the top and shouted for help. Jack ran down to the water, but someone else was quicker, and that was Spot, the big puppy dog. He had seen Benny fall and heard the splash, and he loved his master so much that he wanted to help all other little boys. And he was probably going to get Benny out of the river before anybody else could. So splash, in he went too, and swam to Benny. He caught hold of the little boy's coat in his strong teeth and swam steadily back to the bank with him, his 4 legs striking out gallantly. How everyone cheered! Heaps of people had run down to the river when they had seen Benny fall in, and how glad they were that Spot got him safely to the bank. Jack dragged him up onto the grass, and Spot licked him all over. "Good dog, Spot, good dog," said Jack, very proud of his puppy. "Oh, you deserve your 7 and 6-penny licence, yes you do." "He's the best dog in the world," said Benny, hugging him. "He saved me from drowning. Look how wet I am." "Come with me to my uncle's," said Jack. "He lives nearby and he'll dry you. He's awfully kind." So Benny went with Jack to his Uncle Hems the tailor, and very soon he was standing in front of a big fire wrapped in a shawl, whilst Mr. Hem dried his clothes on a rack in the kitchen. Just going to pause there just to show you that picture. Picture of him in the water with puppy dog Spot going to save him. Whilst they were all talking 19 to the dozen, who should come in but Mr. Grimm to see how his new suits were getting on. He was so surprised to see Benny standing by the fire with a towel wrapped around his shoulders. "Well, well," he said, "if it isn't the nice little boy who smiled at me yesterday. Well, well, what do you think your fine smile did for me, my boy? It made me feel so good that I came in here and ordered a whole lot of new clothes, didn't I, Mr. Hem?" "You certainly did," said the tailor, "and your order made me very happy, because I knew then I could afford to send my little nephew here some money for his birthday. Did you get your postal order, Jack?" "Oh, Uncle, yes, I did," cried Jack, hugging the tailor in delight. "I forgot to thank you for it because of all the excitement of Benny falling into the river." "What are you going to spend it on, then?" asked his uncle. "I've spent it already, actually," said Jack. "I've bought a dog licence for dear old Spot. We were just coming back from the post office when Benny fell into the river, and then Spot jumped in to save him." Suddenly everyone was quiet. They were thinking. Most of all, Benny was thinking. Then he spoke. "My own smile saved me," he said. "If I hadn't smiled at Mr. Grimm yesterday, he wouldn't have felt pleased and gone to buy his new clothes. If he hadn't gone to buy them, Mr. Hem wouldn't have had the money to send Jack. And if Jack hadn't had the money, he wouldn't have gone to buy a licence for Spot. And if he hadn't gone to buy the licence for Spot, he wouldn't have been by the river when I fell in, and Spot wouldn't have been able to save me from drowning. It was all because of my smile. The smile my mother told me I ought to give to people, because I had nothing else to give them but that." And there's a picture of all of them there, stood in the tailor's, all just thinking about what's happened. "What a wonderful thing," said Mr. Grimm. "Who would have thought that a smile could do all that?" "And I thought it was wasted," said Benny. "But it wasn't. Mother says smiles and kind words are never wasted, and she's right." "Well, what do you think of that?" But that wasn't all the smile did, by the way. Because of that smile, Jack, Benny and Spot became the greatest of friends. Mr. Hem the tailor made such fine coats for Mr. Grimm, that the tailor became famous and had to take on a larger shop. And as for Mr. Grimm himself, he was a different man. He became kind, generous and friendly, and all the children loved to meet him, for he never frowned as he used to. All because of that smile. And that's the end of that story there. So yeah, that there was one of my favourite stories that my nan used to read me. I hope it means something at the moment, because these times are weird and you're not getting to do very much with people or see many people, and you don't need to send them expensive gifts, but things can happen because of a smile, and this book really shows that. If you're nice to your parents at home and you give them a smile and you actually say good morning to them, they might not be grumpy, and then they might not ask you to do something straight away, or they might let you go outside for a bit longer after you've done your home learning. So yeah, I loved that story, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Keep remembering to send your work in if you can, and I look forward to seeing even more of it, and have a good weekend when it finally gets there. Thanks very much. I'll see you guys soon.